This video will quickly run you through an example of ChemDecide, and the particular problem we're going to work on is to choose best coffee machine to purchase from the following: cafetiere, a filter machine, and espresso machine. So when you first open the software, you're presented with this screen. You see at the top there's a tabular menu which allows you to progress through the software, but the first screen is definition, and in here you enter in what the decision's goal is going to be. So this would be to select a coffee machine to purchase. You also enter in the names of the people present. Show an example of a second name. You can then enter in when you were given the decision and when you need to solve it by. After this, you then go to brainstorm criteria, and this is the most important screen for a Brightest facilitator. Here's where you collect all the ideas, values and objectives from around the table of what you think is going to be your criteria for solving your decision problem. So here we would have, for example, in terms of choosing a coffee machine, you may have flavor, the size of the machine, the capacity, the amount of cups it produces, the color of it, the cost, say the bitterness of the coffee. And those are just a few examples. You can fill this list up. Next screen is then set alternatives. So here we have the filter machine, espresso machine, and cafetiere. The next screen, set criteria. This is where you use your brainstormed criteria to help you form your key criteria which you're going to use to model your problem upon. So you can combine a couple of these together. For example, say flavor and bitterness of the coffee, we could call that taste. That will be qualitative. You want to maximize it. Cost, we'll call that purchase price, and that would be quantitative. I want to minimize it. And then combining a couple others, let's say size and color, we could call that aesthetics. That would be qualitative, and I want to maximize it. And we'll just choose 3 for this example problem. The next screen then is to define your criteria. So here you choose the criteria on the left, and then you're given room to describe it, say why it's essential, and how you're going to assign a value to it. So taste would be, say, the mouthfeel, the bitterness, the flavor, etc. It's essential because we need a good tasting cup of coffee. That will be used. And how we're going to assign a value to it is it should be from personal taste test. After you do this for all of the criteria, you can then review your criteria. And on this screen, you make sure that you can get a value for filter machine, espresso machine, and cafetiere in terms of taste, purchase price, and aesthetics. If you don't have this information, it's now time to go away and find this information before you go into the analysis. Or if you know that you won't be able to get one of the criteria values or alternative values, you may need to go back and modify your selections. You can then choose from the list below what you think is instinctively the best before you go into the decision analysis. It would be your gut feeling. For me, it would be espresso machine. You can then select analysis, and here you can save your decision file. So we'll call this coffee example. And then you can progress into any of the 3 decision analysis tools. You'll notice that it will actually calculate the number of selections you have to make within each tool based upon the number of alternatives and criteria you have. The reason for this is that with AHP, if you have many different alternatives and criteria, you have to make many different selections, and this may make this tool in particular very time consuming to use. Okay, to start, we're going to run you through ChemDecide AHP. The first thing you do is you go to File and Open, and select the decision file that we saved earlier. And it will preload the information into the software screen. In all three analysis tools, the first thing you have to do is make your criteria selections. This is choosing your criteria weights. And uniquely with AHP, you use pairwise comparisons. So the first thing you'll see is you have to choose between the importance of taste and purchase price. For me, it would be taste. And as you can see, as you move this bar, it automatically changes the pie chart above. The next selection would be between taste and aesthetics, and taste would be very important to me. And as you can see at the bottom, there's also a consistency checker, which checks to make sure the information you're inputting is actually rational. So if I was to now say that aesthetics is very important, it would say it's inconsistent, but then if I move towards purchase price, it would be consistent based on my previous entry. And from this you can see that taste gets 58%, and then purchase price, and then a small amount for aesthetics. So in terms of taste, which is a qualitative criterion, you have to choose between each one of the options in terms of taste. So for me, I would say espresso machine would taste slightly better than a filter machine. Cafetiere and filter machine would be somewhat similar, and an espresso machine would probably taste slightly better than a cafetiere because I like my espressos. You'll also notice underneath each selection there is a text box, and this is where you can enter in the rationale for that selection. So you can say why espresso machine is moderately better than a filter machine. Purchase price. This would be a quantitative criterion, so the units for this would be pound sterling. And going back to my price values, filter machine cost £20.99 at Amazon. Espresso machine, it's very expensive, it costs £79.99, and that price came from Curry's. And the cafetiere was £9 at Tesco. In terms of aesthetics then, you make similar selections as we did before. So in terms of looks, I would say the filter machine would look a little bit better than an espresso machine. I quite like the look of the cafetiere, so I would say it looks better than the filter machine, and the cafetiere would look much better than the espresso machine. Again, consistency checker saying that the values are consistent. For this example, I've left out of all of the rationale information. It is advised that you put this information in because it is saved in the decision report, which you can export. You can then look at the results, and from the information I've put in, cafetiere was the best. You can then look at this from the analysis and see why. And cafetiere score very highly in terms of purchase price and aesthetics. You can also view by alternatives, and you can see that in terms of cafetiere, it did very well in terms of aesthetics and price in this area as well. You can then go back, change the values, you can save a decision file, which I'll do, and then open up in the other methods. I'll save over the one we have. And you can also generate a report. So we'll call this test. And then you're provided with a PDF report which shows all the information that you've input into the previous tool and this one, and the outputs. And you can do this in PDF or Word format. With ChemDecide Mirror, you do the same thing as you did with AHP, and you open the decision file. This one was saved from the ChemDecide AHP study. And the first thing you do within the software is the criteria selection. And this is slightly different to what we did in ChemDecide AHP. Instead of using pairwise comparisons, you have one selection to make for each criterion. So in terms of taste, that would be very important to me. Purchase price would also be important, and aesthetics would be less important. Again, you've got the text boxes to enter in the rationale for why you're making these choices. You can then go to the top and you can see the pie chart. For these selections I've made, 50% of the weights have gone to taste, 41% has gone to purchase price, and 7.8% has gone to aesthetics. In terms of taste, which is a qualitative criterion, you select a value for each one, but if you're uncertain, for say if I haven't tasted the coffee from a certain filter machine, you can select the maximum, minimum and most likely value in terms of the uncertainty present. I'd say an espresso machine would taste very good and a cafetiere would be around about there. In terms of purchase price, the values get brought over from ChemDecide AHP. We can also add uncertainty to this, so say if there's a sale on Curry's and you get an espresso machine for £5 cheaper. I'll put that in as 80. In terms of aesthetics, so the filter machine would look quite good. The espresso machine would look very good, and cafetiere would be excellent. Well, let's say I haven't seen this particular cafetiere option. I'll put these values in like that for the uncertainty present. Then you can view the results. So from this you can see that in terms of most likely value, espresso machine and filter machine are very similar, but there's a lot more uncertainty present behind the filter machine option. But the best option by far is the cafetiere, which is the whole uncertainty range associated with it is much higher than the other two options. You then look at the analysis, and similarly you can view by criteria or you can view by alternatives. But you can also choose to view the minimum values, the most likely values, or the maximum values of what you've entered. If you've got many different criteria and you want to remove some of these from the chart, you can click on the names on the left hand side and just look at one or two at a time. Again, you can generate a report, save the decision file. I'll just save over the one we had from here. Okay, so the last ChemDecide analysis tool we're going to cover is ChemDecide Rank, and we're going to open the file we saved from ChemDecide Mayor. And as you can see, a lot of the data has been pre-populated from the Mayor study. The criteria weights have already been brought over. In terms of taste, the values have also been brought over, but you can modify the thresholds, which are the unique thing about ChemDecide Rank, which I'll explain in terms of quantitative information. So there's three thresholds you have to choose. These are indifference, preference and veto. And indifference is the value at which you have no preference over the difference in value between one alternative over another. So what this is saying is that say if I entered £1 here, that would mean that you wouldn't care if one alternative was £1 more expensive or cheaper than the other. But if I was to say enter a preference of £10, that would mean if one alternative is £10 cheaper than the other, you would then prefer that alternative. And then there's also veto. So if I were to say £50, so if one alternative is £50 cheaper than the other, then I would automatically prefer the cheaper one. In terms of aesthetics, the quality of information is also transferred over from Mayor, and the threshold values, which you can select at the bottom again. And then you can click on results, and it will show here that, as you can see, cafetiere is the best, and then it's grouped filter machine and espresso machine as the second best rank. You can also view the analysis, which is very different to the two other tools. You can see that there are 4 coloured keys at the bottom, one for ranked better, one incomparable, one indifferent and one ranked worse. And you can click on the various options to see what it means. So here you can see that filter machine is incomparable to espresso machine, probably because it got vetoed out. And you can see here that the filter machine is worse than cafetiere. So from this you can then save your decision file again, you can generate a report, and you can come back to your information at a later date.